Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Меня зовут Барабанов Александр, я представляю компанию.
I'm Alexander Golovatov from the Echelon company. I'm responsible for the certification of the data protection solutions, and in free time I also teach in the Moscow Technical University after Bauman. I teach information security, and would like to explain the project that I was involved in, which is related to the development of the national standard of the Russian Federation about creating a software. Those of you who track down the trends in the national certification system may point out that over the last couple of years the national certification systems have become more practically oriented, so they are much more oriented to practical safety. Such activities like vulnerabilities analysis is mandatory when doing such certification tests. I would also like to point out that the requirements for tests labs actually meet the international standards that are used by the foreign labs and the foreign certification systems. The so-called software vulnerabilities database is also used, and the requirements are provided to the information protection, which is related to not only getting the certificate but also supporting this certificate by releasing the updates. I'd also like to point out that there may be some protective measures here to create the software with minimal number of vulnerabilities. But unfortunately, it has not been defined in a big number. We know the needs, the actual needs for the implementation of various activities related to the safe software. So the regulator wanted to have some research, and as a result a national standard was created with the name given at the screen, the development of the safe software. This standard was developed the first time to protect the interest of the regulator, to protect information. So when the documentation was developed, the specifics was taken into account. The document would stipulate the best practices that are to create the safe software. But this document should also be compatible with the standard criteria standard. De facto, it's used as a basis for all of the national certification system. This document should be oriented at the developers of the protection solutions, and also those who could confirm that in the organization best practices are actively used. On the slide I'm showing you the stages of the project. We started working on it in April 2013. We tested the document from May until September 2014 and 2015, there were public listenings in the 362 committee, which is about data protection. I would like to point out that starting from April until September 2015, when the listenings were over, the 7th version of the document was adopted. They received from Kaspersky Lab positive and things. It was taken into account. The current status of the document, all the formal procedures were passed, and currently the document is going through ROS standard procedures, so we expect that in June and July it will be confirmed. The main part of the document, the national standard document, is made up of the safe software development requirements. We need to point out that we are not reinventing any wheel here, and the measures that are reflected in the current version of the document had been stipulated through the analysis of different standards and methods, and they have been developed by both Western and Russian organizations. The Russia Bank, for example, that's the standard for the safe use of software. For simpler solution, all of the measures were compared with the standard life cycle procedures. It's a standard describing various processes that can be related to the implementation of the software. We need to point out that neither concrete model of the software development is declared. Speaking in terms of the software implementation, I would like to point out that in these 4 processes, with few vulnerabilities, we offer such processes as threats modeling, the use of static analysis of threats and texts. Apart from functional testing, we recommend the use of different activities to analyze the penetration, the dynamic analysis of code, and application testing. Apart from the main processes, we have some additional ones, supportive processes, various processes related to the organization matters. The document offers additional measures for training and the search of the vulnerabilities and managing the configuration to provide protection from the access, unauthorized access. So for a few life cycle solutions, the document stipulates a number of measures They also identify the goals and results the safe software, and for each measure they have requirements for its implementation. I would like to point out that such measures are not only related to the developers, so that the developers need to implement this or that static analysis. We also have requirements to the developer that they need to use through different activities. So is to be used to confirm the processes of the developer. I would like to show you how this project is related to those documents that are already there in the ecosystem and somehow related to the safe software development. It can be used as a source for additional measures for the protected software. It can be used for trusted criteria and so forth. I would like to point out that this document is the first part of work which is done by the ecosystem. There will be a document released which will be disclosing some of the items of the national standard, so the description is given at a very high level. I'm done. Thank you very much. Questions, please.
Скажите, этот документ, он в первую очередь...
What is the target audience of this document? Those who would like to be contractors also think that this document will be used by the independent developers to ensure the safety of the products. Does it contain any recommendations of how to implement these practices? How to implement these practices in the most painless way? The main target audience is the developers of the software, those who would like to certify this. It would be nice if this document was used by the developers. Answering your last question, I would like to point out that such recommendations for the implementations are not reflected here. So most likely it will be reflected in some other documents. Can we read it somewhere? Yes, you can contact me by this electronic mail. I can send you the copy. But this will not be the version published by ROS Standard. There was something related to the vulnerabilities search. GHOST. Yes, there is a vulnerability related GHOST for certification. As far as I know, it's still publicly announced and is done by a different developer. It will take some time. Yes, it will. Thank you. I saw some software for vulnerability analysis, app checker it's called, which is uses Avast. Is that true? But I'm not quite competent answering this question because I'm mainly about certification here in Echelon. We have developers, we have a senior engineer. But if a site states that it checks that, most likely it's true. Unfortunately, I cannot speak more about AppChecker. Thank you. Don't have time. Just one final question, please. Very quick question about the mandatory status of those who would like to license. Will it really be mandatory? As far as the document is concerned, first of all, it will have some recommendation. And as far as the requirements for data protection are concerned, one of the requirements is that the organization should use some activities to provide the safe use of the software. So it does not really have this mandatory requirements stipulated. It says that it would be nice that if you started using this safe software. It seems like it's going to be recommended for a while, and after some time, in 2 years, it will become mandatory. That's what I know. Thank you. One final question. You spoke about the need of the static analysis, the analysis of the vulnerabilities during the development. As far as I know, the static analysis is the control of possibilities. Does it really say that the certification issues become the competence of the developer? If not, why should the developer do the NDV on its own? The static analysis of code that you're referring to in the document is wider than the search. The document dates back to 1999. The target audience are developers, and the document is to encourage the developers to use good activities to create software with minimal number of vulnerabilities. As far as the certification of this kind that you're mentioning is concerned, it's not really so. As for the static analysis and vulnerabilities and other methods applied, and certain activities that are required for the developers to do on their own, so that they have safe